This is going to be a little bit of a different video for me. I don't typically come out and just post immediate reaction videos, but this time around, I'm in a bit of a unique spot. Earlier today, we got additional and new gameplay around Cyberpunk 2077. This gameplay has been highly anticipated for months. It was first announced that gameplays would be shown off at this year's E3, so all the way back in June, this was kind of announced and people have been waiting since then. I was fortunate enough to attend E3 this past June and also check out this gameplay demo. And to put it into perspective, in June we saw something that was 50 to 55 minutes in length but couldn't be shown publicly. Today what we saw was a 15-minute gameplay demo that was basically an edited down version of what I saw previously. And maybe this is controversial or not typical, but I gotta say I didn't love what I saw today. Even though I walked out of that gameplay demo in June ecstatic, as you could see by my video reaction at the time, this time around I felt pretty different, and a big part of that was actually how this gameplay was edited. I feel like it's just not a good showcase of the game. There's some other things that I didn't really love in the gameplay demo. It certainly looks like there's some downgrades comparing this one and the streamed version of it compared to last year's, and I'll touch on that, but really just looking first at this 15 minutes of gameplay that has been so anticipated and so long waited for. I mean, frankly, it's been basically 1 year since we got any substantial amount of gameplay around this game, outside of that minute or so supercut of the same gameplay we saw at E3, but that was even more condensed. One of the big things I just didn't really love was the whole montage style. It felt like even though this was a 15-minute video, we only really saw like 10 or so minutes of actual gameplay. And for a lot of this, it felt like they were just throwing sub 10-second clips at us. Like, hey, look, there's this thing over here. And then, oh yeah, over here, there's this other thing you could do. It didn't give you time to totally process and digest what you were seeing. Maybe that's simply a change to the marketing strategy, but compared to what we saw last year with a nice, almost flat out 50 minutes of just going from one point to the other, going through the dialogue at a nice and slow pace and getting to see everything as it pans out, I really didn't love this montage style. It made things feel way more confusing and just not as good. It wasn't as good of a display of what was actually going on. And the reason I find this so bizarre, weird, and even just a little bit more disappointing is I saw the other version of this. At E3, I got to see a more gradual presentation of this same thing, and I like that a lot more. One of the big themes throughout this gameplay is showing off the variety you have in playstyles. You can see the solo build or the netrunner build, and it's meant to really display how much variety and choice you'll have with how you spec out and build out your character in this game. Although yes, I think it does convey the point that there will be quite a bit of variation, and some of that variation will be fun and cool. Even this was really condensed. On the E3 gameplay, we saw a variety of different stealth takedowns or stealthy ways to clear through things. This time we saw like one. Then it cut to a different mechanic, which we would also get a brief glimpse at, but this too just felt really rushed and all over the place, going from one thing quickly to another and not just gradually showing you everything. Ironically enough, for me at least, this is actually kind of good. There's probably going to be an even greater demand for breakdown and analysis videos, which I am working on immediately after I finish this one, but I think part of the problem with what made this gameplay feel so weird is the fact that they didn't go this approach last year. We got to look at what raw gameplay of this game would be like. That was shown off publicly around 1 year ago now, and then a ton of journalists and media members got to see it just a few months ago, and then posted all of their opinions and thoughts on that online. Having that almost be the backdrop to this gameplay release made it feel a lot more removed and just not as special as some of the previous ones. And one of the other things around this is I really just don't get why they shortened the gameplay. One of the big reasons given was they didn't want to share too many spoilers, which is understandable. You don't want to ruin the game before it comes out. But at the same time, having seen the 50-minute version, then seeing the 15-minute version, the vast majority of what was cut from this wasn't really spoilery. It was going through this mall as you're introduced to it, taking down enemies in a variety of different ways, switching between the playstyles, going a little bit more in depth on some of those mechanics. Even just watching this gameplay that we just saw, I feel like giving a commentary over it, I could give a lot of additional context because I was provided that context the first time around. And all in all, this comes together to really give me this opinion that is a little weird. The game looked good. It was just how the game was presented, how they displayed this to millions of people was weird, and I just wasn't a fan of it. I don't know if this was maybe a marketing strategy, if they found that people just weren't watching a ton of the previous gameplay, so they were missing out on a lot of those new features. They wanted a quicker, more condensed version, and hopefully that would appeal to a lot more of the general audiences, even though it would disappoint some hardcore fans. Or maybe they weren't as happy with how the gameplay came out, so they're condensing it to try and hide some of the less desirable features. I don't personally think that. that. I think the gameplay speaks for itself and it looks great, but just this presentation I don't think was a win for them. Even online, immediately you could see some negative reactions to it, and it's really not about what was shown, but how it was shown. Although on the other side of things, there definitely were some things that didn't look as good, especially seeing them a second time. The gunplay has been a constant point of criticism around this game, and I definitely think that could be mirrored here. It's honestly almost hard to judge it because we see so little of it. When we see it, just kind of a quick burst here or there. Is there so little recoil here because we have a certain enhancement on our character, or is it just because there's not a lot of recoil? That's something, fortunately, I still think there is time to improve, and I'm not too concerned about it. There also, of course, is a lot of conversation about the visual downgrade that is kind of evident. I think this requires a much deeper dive than you could go in so quickly, but just for context in the background, both of these are the original 4K video that was uploaded to YouTube, downsampled to 1440p. I certainly think last year's gameplay looks better. To me, this almost feels like it's a lighting focus change, like the lighting in the most recent demo is a little bit worse, and lighting, as you probably can know in video games, plays a massive role as far as visuals go. It can make a good game look great and a bad game look really bad. I would say both of these look pretty good. It's not like one is unbearable and one's this amazing HD quality, but there's definitely a difference. Comparing some of these clips back and forth, you can see that. One of the factors here might just be the environments of this most recent gameplay are almost always indoors in dark settings, so maybe it's just the way they're filmed and it's not actually the game overall. Either way, to me, it's still a good looking game, but this is interesting and it's definitely something that I think requires a little bit further investigation. Regardless, on both of these, there is a big disclaimer saying that it is not the final product, so that is understandable if things are changed or downgraded. Either way, I would just say overall, this is still one of my most anticipated games. It's just this particular presentation wasn't a huge selling point for me. What we saw last year looked a lot better. What I saw behind closed doors got me a lot more excited. It still looks like a great game. There's still a lot to unpack from this gameplay, and content around that is coming, but I just first wanted to give you my impressions, my thoughts about what we saw, and why I honestly wasn't a huge fan of it. Hopefully you guys enjoyed this video. As always, in the comments, I'd love to hear what you thought. Do you like this? Do you think it looks better, worse? Did you like the presentation style of this gameplay? But with all that being said, I thank you again for watching, and I hope to see you all next time. Later.